Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Legality Hangouts and Headlines. It's 7 a.m. on the Eastern time zone in the United States. I think that makes it 4 a.m. in California and various times around the world. I hope you guys are interested in some headlines today as a prelude to the last day of the week in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial before next week's big week, where we actually have 5 days because closing arguments are going to be on May 27th, just before Memorial Day here in the United States. It is a crazy, crazy time for this trial, as you may or may not be aware, including, as of yesterday, a number of video depositions. But a number of articles came out in the last few days, very, very recently, in bigger and bigger news media outlets. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier this week, but essentially, what a number of these outlets have apparently deigned to do is to react to what they view as the reaction, right? That when this trial started, or at least during the period between the divorce of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and this trial starting, it seemed to be that most people were inclined to believe Amber Heard. After all, none of us want to be turning a blind eye to domestic abuse, and what was alleged against Johnny Depp was very significant. As this trial started, and I came in pretty blind, but knowing that there was a significant Johnny Depp movement, whether that was fan-driven, whether that was evidence-driven, well, reasonable minds can differ, I suppose, and we certainly see opinion pieces based on that premise. But as the trial continued, it became clearer and clearer that Johnny Depp actually had a stronger case, a stronger argument than I would have assumed sitting there. And as a result, I think the internet really glommed onto that. So we're going to be talking about various aspects of this. Neither of these articles today actually discuss LawTube. This is not that kind of meta criticism that you've seen in other articles. Instead, they're focused on an aspect of what we've seen media discuss as part of this trial, which is TikTok, Twitch, and various ways that bad actors are not perhaps treating the issue with what we would like to see here in Virtual Legality. I think on Legal Bites, for the most part, a sense of decorum or at least open-mindedness to evaluating the evidence. A lot of people have decided, a lot of the internet has decided. Obviously, the internet is prone to deciding things very, very rapidly. And as a reaction to that, yes, these media outlets are basically saying, throw all the babies out with all the bathwater, including LawTube and people that I think are doing a good job of helping explain how this is all working. But also, we're going to look at some opinion stuff. We're going to look at some stuff that I disagree with, but we're also going to try to say, yes, there probably are places on the internet that are going a bit too far. And one of the problems with going a bit too far is you do open the door to somewhat legitimate media criticism, like we're going to see here today. Now, I know that sounds like I'm couching for these two articles. These two articles go too far, in my opinion, themselves. But I do want to look at this and look at why these articles exist and how they kind of function in a media environment where not everybody is watching the trial. Not everybody is looking at every bit of every day's evidence. God knows, I think half the panel fell asleep during the depositions yesterday and are looking forward to more video depositions today. So even some panelists aren't necessarily enthralled with what they're seeing in the trial right now in terms of just interest level. So with that as our background, let's hit a few super chats, and then we're going to buzz right through into these articles because that's where a lot of interesting things lay. And again, if you don't know, I'll be on Legal Bites at 8:30 this morning, give or take. About an hour and a half from now, I've got a redirect set up in this video. So if you stay on this channel, when we get done, it's supposed to take you straight over there, and I'll be following a couple minutes thereafter. Hopefully, YouTube did its job there. Hopefully, that's all set up. I've already let Alita know that that's what we're doing. And we're going to land this as close to 8:30 as possible, but definitely between that 8:30 and 9 o'clock range before court actually opens. So, few super chats. Jason, good morning, Hoagies. Hoagies Heroes, whatever you guys are calling yourselves now. I really appreciate it. That is very, very generous. Thank you so much. And Ra's al Ghul, number one, GM Hoeg, love the work you do, man. Have a good day. GM, I think, is good morning there. I'm getting better at the internet speak. You can tell, right? I didn't just read GM as part of that super chat. Thank you so much. And let's talk about this stuff. So I think that'll do it. Why it's time to believe Amber Heard, says Vogue. Indeed, it's an interesting time to go out with this particular article headline, right? We've watched the trial. We watched Amber Heard's testimony. I tried my darndest to believe Amber Heard because I think that's what every witness is entitled to as they take the stand is, hey, talk to me. You're giving testimony. You're under oath. There's a lot of reasons to suggest that you wouldn't be lying here. And now you take the stand and I say, well, okay, so major aspects of what you just said are exaggerated. We now have your own witnesses on video differing with your accounts of very important aspects of this case. And yet you'll see this, why it's time to believe Amber Heard. You'll also see a New York Times headline that has kind of a similar bent. And we'll talk about that as well. But we're going to go through this opinion piece. Why it's time to believe Amber Heard. This is of May 17th, 2022. That's 2 days ago. So basically, Amber Heard's testimony, give or take. And we get the Amber Heard picture that we now expect. Where to begin with the online cesspit that is Depp v. Heard. So that's your opening line. We've talked about this. This is where you set the tone for your article. And online cesspit is certainly setting a bit of a tone. So we know what we're going to get, honestly, if we've read any articles over the past week, which we have here at Hangouts and Headlines. We know that this is going to be slanted towards the internet is a horrible place that is doing horrible things, and we need to do something about it. Now, that's obviously a certain opinion from a certain seat with an outlet like a Vogue, right? If you've got the big name on the masthead, then chances are you don't much care for other people talking about these things, potentially getting more attention, potentially getting more clicks, more money, whatever you are otherwise driven by. And so we always have to kind of take that tilt into account when we're analyzing the real big media, and Vogue and New York Times big for these kinds of conversations, though Vogue, I think, is probably a little smaller than it used to be. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few weeks, you'll know that the ex-spouses are back in court. Johnny Depp is seeking damages of $50 million after Amber Heard wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post in 2018 in which she spoke of being a victim of domestic abuse without ever explicitly naming Depp. Now, that's true, but also tells you kind of the slant that this article has, because we also have days and days and days of testimony by this time that say even Heard's team is not arguing that it is about Johnny Depp, or at least the references that are at issue are about Johnny Depp. They're arguing a more holistic kind of concept that the article may have referenced Johnny Depp, but it was about grander things. Amber says it's about what happened afterwards. The opening statements for Heard's team basically said it's about governmental petition. They want to change some of these acts. They want to advance that concept in the halls of Congress. All of those things can actually be true. It can be about Amber Heard after Depp. It can be about advancing political gains in Congress. It can also be about Johnny Depp. So an article has a lot of things that it is about. And I really don't think that holistic argument is going to land much with the jury. Everybody knows it's Johnny Depp. The question is, was he abused? Did he abuse her? And going from there. And we'll see the New York Times actually argue that as well, as I did during the opening statements, saying, well, these lines are technically true, regardless of whether or not he abused her. And I just don't think that's going to matter here at the end of the day in court. But we'll talk about that when we get there, because they really do advance the legalistic argument that I think has got some water, but probably not by the time that you are in week 6 of court. So the robots, tell you what, I'm going to get these robots. The robots are subscribing to channels now. So I try to have the subscriber requirement here, but they're very, very fast. I apologize about that. The minutia being combed through at the trial has come to feel less like a lawsuit and more like a torturous exorcism of the past. I do have to hand it to some of these opinion writers. They have fun with metaphor. A thorough and painful raking over the coals of their 4-year entanglement. And yeah, it does feel that way. Some days feel like absolute crap watching this trial, because it's two people that clearly were bad for each other. Whether or not that rose to the level of abuse, none of this sounds like fun in all these stories we're getting. The details of both Depp and Heard's testimonies are harrowing all by themselves, gruesome, violent, and containing deeply intimate anecdotes about their relationship. Now, broadly speaking, witness testimonies can be persuasive, and with 2 actors in the dock, we can never be sure of the absolute truth. In all honesty, nobody is ever sure of the absolute truth. Even criminal cases don't have a burden of certainty about the absolute truth. They have beyond a reasonable doubt, because unreasonable doubts are still doubts that people have, but they're irrational. They really aren't on the side of saying that there's a problem with this truth. And you could be getting to a place, not that this is the burden of proof in this particular case, that says, okay, as these things line up, as these testimonies get entered, I'm more and more sure that the world looked more like Amber Heard's side of things or Johnny Depp's side of things. So, no, you can't know the absolute truth. That was never in play for any court case of any kind. Still, despite the fact that London's High Court previously found allegations that Depp was a wife beater to be substantially true, the internet appears to have overwhelmingly picked Depp's side. This is an interesting fact, of course, and we can expect to hear it in various forms in the closing arguments from the Heard team, even though it appears they're not allowed to mention the Sun case. Rightly so, because the Sun case is about a different article and different naming, about different events done under a different form of law by one judge in the UK. So it doesn't really have the probative value in this case in Virginia that all of these articles would lend it. And that's the reason it's kept out of court. Last week, justice for Johnny Depp was trending on Twitter. Yesterday, it was Amber Turd. Go on social media, and the anti-Heard sentiment is palpable. The memes have been ferocious, sometimes consisting of a spot the difference comparison with domestic abuse victims. At other times, televised courtroom footage has been appropriated to openly mock her appearance. It is plain misogyny. Now, we've seen this before. And I've been sent things that people have felt go too far on TikTok and other videos, even those that are on the Johnny Depp side of the equation here. And I have to admit, yes, of course, there are things that go too far on the internet. There isn't any group or anything that has ever been covered to a large amount in social media that doesn't have people going too far. And it allows them to say these kinds of things, even though I think they are wrong, right? We've talked about generalizations. We've talked about generalities here in virtual legality. And to suggest that everything on social media is plain misogyny is, again, at least one step past comfort level for me, even though I would argue that some of the things you are seeing probably are misogynistic. Now, I'd argue that some of the things you're seeing in mainstream media and otherwise are misandrist or going the other direction against men, and we see that in these articles as well. But that's not terribly healthy for really any kind of conversation, right? That's not reasonable minds can differ. That's the other side against me is ist in some fashion on both directions. And so it still does us good to open our minds and look at things like this and try to see where they're coming from. But this goes too far. The company behind the makeup compact Heard used to hide her bruises even made a TikTok disputing her claims. Now you see the assumption here, right? Now this is an opinion piece, but you start to see here Amber Heard is right. Now you also saw it in the headline, but as we know from the case itself, we don't know if the writer actually wrote that headline, right? So we're looking at this and we now see compact Heard used to hide her bruises. That's your assumption. It's baked into the sentence. You know this author believes Amber Heard and what she had to say. And that's how, once you believe that, even before the trial is over, you can write this kind of thing. Because now you're seeing someone who's telling the truth, according to you, that is getting railed on social media. And now you want to defend her. You want to protect her. But we don't know whether Heard hid bruises with the compact. We do know that the makeup compact company came out. Heard is being systematically jeered at and ridiculed like a medieval criminal in the stocks as she catalogs historic abuse as she alleges rape. So catalogs historic abuse, again, isn't alleges. You see what she alleges down here. And so that's, again, the assumption that this stuff actually happened in the way that she described. There are reasons to question that. There are legitimate reasons that don't involve misogyny, don't involve any kind of gender-based decision-making. It just involves Amber Heard and Johnny Depp as people, not as representatives of a class or a demographic or a gender. And then you see here, even Vogue, interestingly enough, in this opinion piece, drops the catalogs for an allegation of the SV side of this. And that's because that is the weakest of her arguments. She doesn't present any evidence. It kind of strains credibility in terms of extrinsically. You don't have medical records. You have just yesterday the acting coach be told that she was only told these stories on the SV side of things a couple of months before her deposition during the legal process for this particular case. And all those things strain her credibility on this count, which is one of the reasons they're fighting so hard against the headline. of the article that she wrote for the Washington Post, because that's what puts SV into play. If she didn't write that headline, if that drops out of the charges that Johnny Depp can actually legitimately file against her, then they only have to talk about abuse. And a reasonable mind could look at all these situations of fighting and apartment destruction and trailer destruction and everything else and say, you know what? I think that probably was intimidating. I think that probably was abusive. And that gives you a hook to hang your hat on if you're on the jury. But then we get back to the Guardian line of thought from Vogue. Have we completely lost track of the severity of these allegations? And I think you can argue that somebody could look at this trial case and come in with an open mind, looking solemnly at the allegations before them, evaluate what those allegations are with all of the level of seriousness that the Vogues and the Guardians would have us use. And at this point, at the very end of the 5th week of the trial, look at the situation before them, look at the evidence and say, yeah, I think it's very unlikely that Amber Heard's case here is legitimate and that she's bare minimum exaggerating various aspects of it. And at that point, it's worthy of derision. Now, I'm not a derisive guy, so you won't hear that from me, but I think a reasonable human being could say, all right, it's at this point in time where we say none of that really holds water, doesn't pass the smell test, whatever you might describe. And no, the allegations themselves aren't what you have to honor, in my opinion. Once you get the evidence and you can evaluate whether or not you think someone is telling the truth on your own, it's the fact that this stuff actually happens to real people that you always have to keep an open mind about, because this stuff is heinous, right? If you go back to the streams on Legal Bites, to me first getting some of the testimony from Amber Heard, from Dr. Hughes, I said, look, I'm having a lot of trouble actually believing these are lies because they are so severe, because they are so heinous, and because the world in which someone is willing to do that is, quite frankly, so dark. And I'm an optimistic guy. I love the world. I love life. I love doing this stuff. I love talking with all of you about these things. But as the case has gone on, as cross-examination went on, I find the evidence to be fairly overwhelming that major portions of what Amber Heard had to say are very unlikely to have occurred in the fashion that they took place in. And at that point, I think that people that are upset about that, about raking another person's life over the coals, are legitimate in that anger, even if I wouldn't direct it in the way that they do. That's not what I do. And probably if I had a platform like this, I would at least say, try to keep it within bounds. But I also wouldn't just throw everybody under the bus with the plain misogyny or anything else like that. We all understand that Depp fans will side with Depp, but even the less aggressively Depp-pilled of us want to believe that the Caribbean pirate is blameless, if not squeaky clean, then at least under the duress of drug addiction or acting out of character, that his violence, assumed, can be somewhat explained away by a lapse of judgment or circumstance, or both. Now, this is an interesting sentence because a lot of what we're seeing in the rest of the media is something along the lines of, all these people are crazed, fanatical Depp fans. And Vogue actually says, no, they don't have to be Depp fans. You can just be someone that knows Johnny Depp, enjoyed his work, and say, hey, I'd prefer it if he wasn't a wife beater. And in all honesty, I probably have at least some level of that bias built in. I don't feel like I'm evaluating the case on that level. But yes, in a perfect world, I would prefer if this person whose work I have enjoyed in parts is not forever stained with something that I would find unpalatable, to watch those things that I enjoy in the future. Now, obviously that happens anyway. There's a lot of things that are otherwise tainted in movies or television or video games, and you have to work through that. But I do think that there's at least a grain of truth in this sentence that says, I would like to be able to watch Pirates of the Caribbean without thinking that he's a horrible monster. So, you know what? Granted, Vogue. But I don't think that that's actually influencing what people are evaluating in the trial themselves. We certainly don't want to believe that this entire court case is a precise and conniving operation in discrediting Heard, regardless of what she has to say and regardless of her truth. Now, you went too far, Vogue. So I try to give you credit where it's deserved. You got this sentence here that says, hey, maybe you just don't want to believe that your Pirates of the Caribbean character is such a bad person. I say, okay, Vogue, I'll grant you that. That's a decent argument. And then you go with, effectively, it's a giant conspiracy by the Johnny Depp team and presumably the PR machine that says We don't need to listen to her regardless of what she has to say. A precise and conniving operation in discrediting her. I think she did a good enough job of that herself, Vogue. She got her day in court. We were able to sit there, look at her, and evaluate how she was describing things, what she looked like while she was. And her truth is not a thing in court. Okay? I get that Johnny Depp has his truth and Amber Heard has her truth. We're not interested in either of those things from a judicial capacity. We're interested in the truth. And as you pointed out, we're never going to get crystal clear 100%, 30,000 foot God's eye view of what the truth is on this. But we can start to burn away some of the inconsistencies and some of the untruths to get closer and closer and closer to what the truth likely was. And so this sentence is where you go too far. That's why it's highlighted in red, of course, and you lose me probably entirely. But we read on. I don't want to think about what this is saying to victims of abuse who are considering coming forward. I think this is, again, a somewhat fair point, right? Amber Heard is getting pilloried. And if you are at all on the side of thinking that isn't deserved, that Amber Heard could be telling a grain of truth, and honestly, I think she could be, then I understand thinking, wow, this could be putting off some people that need to actually go and report this kind of thing because who wants any of this? Now, you're not Amber Heard in all likelihood, and it's not going to look like this. But when the internet turns its eyes on you, it can be very, very rough indeed. I don't have anywhere near the publicity or Q score of Heard and Depp, but certainly when my articles or videos come into the public eye, I have often seen the internet turn on me pretty darn good. Now, that doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some other people, but I will tell you things like, my family sometimes can't read my social media or my comments to the things I put out because of that. So I get that. I do. Now, on the other hand, you flip that around and say this might be doing some good for men who otherwise believe that they are being abused and coming forward when that hasn't been socially acceptable for, as long as I can remember, in all honesty. And so you can argue that as well. Of course, you're not going to argue that if you're an opinion writer for Vogue that clearly already believes that Amber Heard is telling the truth. Regardless of what Heard did or didn't suffer at the hands of Depp, isn't the relentless memeing of her a form of violence in itself? I'm glad you asked, Vogue. No, it's not. Violence has specific meanings, and I think this could be unfair, and I think the internet often is unfair. But in the United States, especially, we believe very strongly in the freedom of speech, and to the extent that you believe someone is lying in open court, to the extent you believe someone has wrecked another's life, and this could flip the genders. If you imagine that this was happening from Johnny Depp's side to Amber Heard's side, I would find it just as warranted, to the extent it is, to talk about that potentially in a derisive fashion on the internet or otherwise. Then no, that isn't a form of violence. But I do understand how you got there with, hey, maybe people won't come forward. So I understand, but that again goes too far in your assertion. Is the pummeling by social media not a type of psychological assault? Legally, that's not really a thing, but I get where you're coming from again, Vogue, and I don't think anybody wants to be on that end of the internet. Are we not witnessing a modern day witch trial? We are not. We're not witnessing a modern day witch trial. Witch trial assumes that there was no way Amber Heard could have gotten out of this, that she couldn't have made sense, and that's just not true. I was sitting there when Amber Heard's case starts and saying, okay, what have you got to say about all of this? And I said I expected the world to look similar to Johnny Depp's, but to involve things that he would have elided, that he would have skipped in his storytelling. Instead, the world Amber Heard presents is very difficult to believe. It is entirely separate from Johnny Depp's description of the world, which honestly is easier to believe, where he admits to drug use, where he admits to various problems, where he does not present himself as a saint, and Amber Heard does, and then describes things that seem unlikely to have happened in the complete absence of extrinsic evidence. So, no, we're not witnessing a modern day witch trial. Now, you might think that the internet came up with the wrong solution. You might think that the internet itself didn't really care about what the trial had to say. And I'm not necessarily going to tell you that you're wrong. Certainly, I'm going out there every day trying to talk about what's actually happening in this case so that the internet knows a little bit better about what is happening. But I, again, will grant you that there are, like there are in every subject matter, corners of the internet that go too far with this stuff. Then Vogue talks about things that keep us happy on the internet, like Kardashian weddings. Okay, Vogue. This is why I don't read you that often, I guess. And things that are bad. We're watching people actively seek out humor in domestic abuse as Roe v. Wade is terrorized by pro-lifers and as we see yet more episodes of racially aggravated violence. That's a heavy sentence. And it seems to suggest effectively, like we've seen in other articles, that people are distracted by bread and circuses on this. And that might be the case to some extent, but not every day can just be focusing on, the Dobbs decision and Supreme Court leaks or other even more heinous things happening around the world and the United States in general with the end of this sentence. But that doesn't mean that it's not still worth watching, that there aren't still important questions to be answered, even in a celebrity trial. And I don't really think it does these media outlets very good to effectively sit on their high horse and say, I can't believe what you people are watching. I can't believe it. You should be focusing on more important things. I get it. I do. But it always comes across as wrong. And if you're writing on this topic, well, then aren't you slipping in the mud with the rest of us? I spend a lot of time wondering if everyone's lost the plot. Sounds like you do, author. If the erosion of empathy we see online has rendered us so inherently unkind as a species that there's no return. These are big thoughts. I think this is probably a little bit too heavy for Depp v. Heard, but I have to admit the internet sometimes does make me sad with whatever topic it is discussing. So I get you. I get you, Vogue author. I don't want to despair for humanity. I don't want to either. I want to believe that some of us are offline and mildly compassionate, or compassionate in a way that doesn't get tweeted about. So you're either offline and able to manage all this, which is fair. A lot of social media is a cesspit and a hellscape from which there is no return, or compassionate in a way that doesn't get tweeted about. Vogue, you are welcome to tweet about this channel, hopefully about me, Legal Bites, LawTube in general. Not always compassionate, but we try. That you're all out there being nice to each other, and I'm reporting on a tiny cluster of internet users with pitchforks. I think honestly that you are. I think that social media and Twitter and TikTok and what have you give outsized responses to media from a very small portion of people, and it gets them a little bit upset. Though I felt myself veering towards it, I can no longer both sides this. This is literally a case with two sides, literally. It's time to draw a line. It's time to believe women, all women. It's time to believe Heard. The British courts believe Depp beat his ex-wife. What's stopping the rest of us? Oh, I mean, I don't know, a judicial process that we're all examining under the laws of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia. So the bad part about this opinion piece, right, is they wanted that headline. They got that headline. What you heard was a lot of paragraphs grousing about the internet and misogyny in general. And then just out of nowhere, it's time to believe Amber Heard. Not with evidence, not with anything based on what she said, not with an evaluation of the court case. They just want to say it's time to believe all women. I have to tell you, if you're going to advocate that stance, which as a lawyer, I think realistically anybody that's a lawyer that looks at due process, I'm against, because you can't believe witnesses on their own. You have to go and burn away those untruths. Yes, investigate seriously. Don't throw into a drawer somewhere. Absolutely, 100%. I think there is value to the Me Too movement in that, but it can't end with just believe, because what does that realistically mean? It means believe all women and don't believe anyone else. Just believe what they say, when at this moment in time, you've got a person in Amber Heard who is not a representative of women. She's a person. And she goes up there and says things that are very incredible. They do not have credibility. And now you go out there with, now is the time to believe. Well, admittedly, this is your strongest statement of support you could possibly give that particular notion, because it's so very, very hard for the rest of us in this context. But it's not a persuasive opinion piece, right? If we're evaluating it on kind of rhetorical style, it just talks about nonsense, which I think it makes a few good points on, as you heard me say when we go through the article, and then it's time to believe Amber Heard. No, it's not. It's not time to believe, especially in the context of a court case. So that's the headline. They wanted the headline. I put the headline in the thumbnail, but it's not really even what these folks are arguing about so much. So that is the first court case. Yeah, that's a court case. The first media article of the day. That's Vogue. We're also going to talk about the New York Times. We're going to hit a few super chats in between those articles. We're making good time. We're going to get back over to the court case, I think, on time today. So we're doing great. Let's listen to some super chats. Let's have some conversations. Dr. Kartoffel Salat, thank you, Hoeg, for spending so much of your days to give your insights here on Legal Bites. Here and on Legal Bites. Yeah, no, they're long days. I think we're at 40 plus hours of streaming with still Thursday to go. I'm probably going to help Legal Bites out on Friday. Who knows? But yeah, they're very long days, but they're very fun days. They're days that are enjoyable for conversing about all this, for talking with you in chat, for talking on Legal Bites with the panelists. I learn. Hopefully, you guys learn. Hopefully, we're entertaining and educational at the same time. I thank you for the super chat. I think it's a good thing that we're doing and putting out there on the internet, despite the fact we're not getting that kind of coverage for the effort. Melika Mirsafian, I think online bullying of Amber Heard has gone too far. You heard me say that. I tend to agree. I like the truth to come out, but not bullying. But bullying, not mockery, is tragic. Yeah, I think that has happened online in certain respects, certainly. And yeah, I'll tell you the same thing I said at the top of this article, which is one of the reasons I hate that from a rhetorical standpoint is it puts the rest of us in a bit of a box. It opens the door for this kind of commentary because, yeah, there are people out there going too far. And if I could change it, if only for that reason, I would. Because both sides of every single question, seemingly in the United States, go and find those terrible actors on either side and say, "Ha, you're with those people." It's like, yeah, I mean, we came out with the same stance. I wouldn't say I'm with those people, but that's what we like to do here in the United States right now. It's incredibly polarizing and not terribly helpful to rational discourse. Thank you for the super chat. Lethal 5-string, 4 a.m., haven't slept, finally catching my first Hoeg LawTube live stream day. Cheers from Washington State. It is very, very early for you. Cheers to you. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for coming on the channel. I have to find my glasses sometime between now and the court case actually starting, but I very much appreciate it. Lethal 5-string, supporter of the channel for a long time now. Nick Wilson, hey, I never read news. I never read news. Just watch for facts and truth. I find myself having to read news in terms of figuring out where those facts and truth might be. But I do hear you. And certainly we're going to keep going over headlines and things even after Depp be heard. And a lot of you send me things that you want to discuss in this space. Keep doing that. I think that's great. We'll also be bringing in some more business stuff that I generally handle in virtual legality and talking about things like what's happening with the Elon articles and the fight against Twitter. Might do a video on that maybe this weekend, maybe tomorrow, depending on where I can find some time. Thank you for the super chat. Gio Rio, misspoken and corrected, but even this morning I remembered Whitney saying rare occasions where I was sober. Yep. Maybe nerves, but wonder of the jury's thoughts. Oh, I think she meant to say that. I think Elaine was expecting a yes or no answer because she's woken from sleep. Were you sober? Obviously, if you're sleeping, the assumption is you weren't just drinking. But she goes in and says, yeah, something along the lines of one of the rare times I was, and Elaine gets taken aback and says, so yes, you were sober. And yeah, no, she absolutely said that. I don't know that this is a big surprise to people evaluating Whitney when she says, oh, I saw some Coke lines and did all that. But yeah, it's not great for a witness to say I wasn't sober during most of this stuff, certainly. Oh, my goodness. And a very, very generous super chat from Terry FYI. Great commentary. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate that. And for coming and visiting with us this morning, early in the morning, to talk about these things. Uncivil, there should be one in the DMs. Is that why I'm not getting visits from anybody this morning? I figured you all were just ostracizing me. But please do look at that. Let me know if it's not there. I tried to put it in there. Should be very recent. Should be very recent. Let's see here. More super chats. Thank you, Gio Rio. Bally, please discuss with other law tubers today what you expect closing to look like. Length, who, timeline charts, conflicting testimonies, audio played. I think that's great. Actually, I think today is probably a good day in one of the breaks to talk about what we expect to see next week at the end. Length will be comparable to the opening statements, I would say. I suspect it to be both Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez and both Rottenborn and Elaine. Timeline charts, God, I hope so. I think everybody could use those. Conflicting testimonies, yes. There will be instances where they point out the obvious differences. Audio played. Thank you. Yeah, I think you will see evidence actually that has been admitted, played, or otherwise shown as part of the closing statements. So I will definitely talk to them about it. They're the litigators, especially Rob in Virginia, who know better than me on those topics. But I think you'll see everything that you just asked for. I hope you do, honestly. Let's see here. Grab a few more of these. You're not going to let me get to the New York Times article. I'm very appreciative of the super chats. Ferran Balanced. It's cute. I like that. Good morning. Been on with good logic as a media expert. I'm a former news anchor who knows how the sausage is made and debunked Amber Heard's PR smear claim. She cray. Yeah, I mean, yes, certainly people that have been involved in media directly have seen some of this. I have seen some of this primarily because I work with PR statements, crisis management. In fact, one of the interesting things here on Hangouts and Headlines, maybe we should invite her after the court case. If you go and you look at Camille Vasquez's bio over at Brown Rudnick, major law firm, one of the things you will see it described as her handling is crisis communications and media conversations for commercial clients, for big companies. And I said, yep, that's what I did. That's what I used to do. And so it would be interesting to hear her come on and talk about these things. Maybe, who knows? You never know. Would be cool. Would be cool. Thank you so much for the super chat. Ashley, aka Ashley Splife. These H&Hs are my favorite videos you do. That's very nice of you to say. Would love to tell you a story, repress in media and headlines coverage one day. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's uncivil.
Hello, how are you? I'm darkened.
And, hello, darkness today?
Yes, I had darkness. I was hoping the camera, hope there'd be more light, but we'll turn on the front lights so it can be illuminated.
Don't kill yourself this early in the morning.
I was hoping I could get away with it.
Yeah. No, I thought I'm glad you had the link.
I was there. I just, didn't see it.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. Kayla Duke. Question, can Amber Heard's team use depositions to run up JD's clock? If they have many to choose from, will it affect JD's time left if they use them all and leave no time for cross on live witness rebuttal? Nope. So a lot of people ask this. I think it's because the depositions have time that's allotted to Johnny Depp. And I guess if it felt like they were doing that, Depp's team would have the ability to say, we don't need our part here or something along those lines. I mean, every other litigator has said, no, they can't do this.
Yeah.
But the depositions are definitely being charged to both sides. But I don't think it's entirely Amber Heard's team that controls that entry.
I'm not sure that's true, to be honest.
You don't think so?
No, I think as long as they're the one presenting it, that, because either side could present the depositions if they wanted to. They're available for either side. And so if they want to present both sides of it during their case, they can. I just think it's their time.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like Amber Heard. So I guess my question then would be, why would you include some of the stuff that isn't useful to you that's coming from the other side? Because like we saw in the divorce attorney was one of the rare videos that didn't have both sides asking questions, that it was only one side doing that questioning. So I guess that's an open question. But listen to Kurt, listen to Rob, listen to the folks more than me. It seems like if you're getting cross in on the deposition, that it probably should just have a video that has a time associated with it. But I don't. They certainly can't play games like that just to screw over the other side.
No, I mean,
so that can't happen.
I think your question may be based on a faulty premise that the side is able to recognize what is and is not good for their own side. Because I'm not even 100% kidding. Because we've watched enough trials together in enough cases that we've seen lawyers ask questions, and we're like, why? Why are you asking these questions?
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah.
No, okay, that's a totally fair point, Kurt. So yeah, it's hard to judge those kinds of things. So no, but they can't. The most important part of this question is the legal system is not designed to do that kind of gamesmanship like you might see in a sport or something else. The judge always has equitable discretion, and so you really can't just screw over the other side if that's what you're aimed to do.
Rule number one of litigation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the judge can decide whatever she wants.
Rule number one is don't piss off the judge.
Yeah, especially if she thinks you're doing something specifically underhanded, look out. Library of Maury question: Amber Heard op-ed prevented Warner Brothers dumping her from Aquaman?
An op-ed can't prevent Warner Brothers from doing anything.
Yes. Well, I think prevented is too strong, but encourage them strongly to not limit her part in Aquaman. I like that theory.
So what was the bullshit article you're reading about today? Now apparently it's time to believe Amber Heard, like this
We
morning it
just did
is.
Vogue. We just finished that one. You just missed
I
that. The links.
I know, but I'm just asking for the 10-second summary. Apparently now's the time we're supposed to just start believing her
Yeah, well,
this
it's not a
morning.
rhetorically sound argument. We did get to
You
the end
don't
there.
say.
Well, so essentially it talks about how the internet is too misogynistic and some things go too far, some
Okay.
of which is accurate, and then has a final paragraph that says effectively, now is the time to believe all women. Now
Oh,
is
you
the
cannot be
time to believe
serious.
Amber Heard. So you could
My desire
definitely
to
hit that
kill.
one in your
I
trailer.
wasn't a misogynist when I started that morning, but listening this morning, but when I listen to a paragraph like that, it like makes me consider it because it's like it's such bullshit.
Yeah, I think the article it was designed to get that headline out. They wanted that headline, so that last paragraph almost feels grafted on. But clearly, the opinion writer believes Amber Heard, and there are assumptions built into that article, as you might expect.
And
Along
I
those
feel like we
lines,
have to have a real discussion about like what misogyny looks like. I refuse to accept the premise that making jokes at or about women is inherently misogynist, that making that disbelieving a woman is misogynist. I don't, if it's not automatically misandrous the other way around. It's like, but there seems
yeah.
to be some people who are like, oh, you criticize a woman, you must be misogynist. It's getting so tiresome, Richard. It really is.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, certainly. I think if you're criticizing someone because they're a woman, that's misogynist. If you're criticizing someone as a person who has agency that's going out there and you don't believe what they're saying, that kind of thing, it's
Yeah.
inherently not that. You're not basing your discussion on gender. And unfortunately, I think the body politic, the media, the discussions often just make you a symbol of whatever demographics you represent, and then they attach that ism to you. So I agree with you on that, Kurt. But I do think that there are people out there that aren't necessarily listening to anything and are just anti Amber Heard potentially, and some of those people are going to be misogynist, and so you grab the worst actors on either side of anything and you slap your opinion together. I think that's what we're seeing more and more of right now. And Tony Estellas, thank you so much, man. How probable is it that the makeup artist is lying regarding the headbutt? How often can people such as her, a kind of independent person, lie? Well, you saw she was a friend of Amber Heard. I didn't get lie from her. I got Amber Heard told me this bad thing happened, and she did look a little bit discolored. I would imagine that the makeup artist could probably tell you that most days the people that she work on have something special that they have to handle that day. For a specific video or appearance or what have you. So I really wasn't getting lying. I was getting, like we see from a lot of the witnesses, I got this information from Amber and I trust Amber. And so I'm going to tell you effectively what I saw under the veil of what I was told. So the answer is we generally trust independent people a little bit more than the sisters and the friends that are getting free penthouses and the security guys that are getting their salaries. But unfortunately, for the most part, that's what we're left with are people that are deeply invested in either side of this particular court case.
Yeah, it's like, does Johnny Depp have anyone on his side that's actually like not being paid by him or
I'd say the
professional?
cops. Well,
This is true. This is fair
the cops are some of his strongest because they
because they are
not
neutral, right?
not only are they not paid by Johnny, they seemed over it entirely. Same with like the Alejandros of the world. Now, presumably, there's still a nice relationship there with somebody that you see pretty often, that kind of thing. But it's not payroll type stuff. So yeah, everybody else, the person that takes care of his private island, his agent, his security guy, his butler. I think the strongest thing as a counter to that for the Johnny Depp side of the equation is he did have his people there with him a long time. Like these were decades long folks. So you could say that's bad because they're even more inclined to be for him. But you could also say, well, he's not having nearly the staffing control issues that it appears Amber Heard does. And you can read into that and say, well, his people are all with him for decades. That must mean he isn't the worst boss in the history of mankind, right?
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, because I'm the kind of guy that says, how you treat your waitress is how you treat your wife. That kind of thing. How you treat staff is indicative of certain aspects of how you operate. And the one thing that everybody has said, even on Amber Heard's side, is that Johnny Depp's like a nice guy that's generous with people and generous of spirit. What Amber Heard's team adds is when he's not using, and then you have to believe that kind of monster story from their side, and that's interesting in and of itself. Thank you for super chat. Kathleen R, hope you're feeling better. Yes, I had a migraine all yesterday that I only revealed at the end of the video because I didn't want people to worry about me or think about it. It was rough sledding sometime during yesterday. Do not have that anymore today. Still have to find my glasses because at least for me, when I have a migraine, I just can't wear my glasses. And so I still have to find them. They are somewhere around here, but I will put them back on because I know people are always like, "Wow, what's with Rick's face?" So I appreciate that. Kareen, not Karen. How can we contact this editor and make a complaint? I'm tired of all these BS articles. You are journalists, report facts. What trial are they watching? I think they probably have contact information. They have
letters to the editor, still a thing.
Letters to the editor work, but don't expect Vogue to change its ways as you write that. Becca G, Hoeg, thoughts on Johnny's chances after yesterday? Reduced, but not materially so, I wouldn't say. Still slanted towards Johnny winning, but as we always said, this defamation case is a tricky one to win, and they did get some muddy middle points in yesterday, definitely. Ruben Martins, hello, Hoeg, came for the reading of emojis, happy face, hearts and eyes face, prayer, stayed for the positive attitude. I think that's like fist bump emoji. Okay, fist up in the air.
And black
emoji.
heart. Well, I feel loved.
Heart emoji. Thank you, Ruben. We got all kinds of colored hearts here.
Is that your new symbol, the black heart of your soul? Is that what the logo we're going with?
Take allegations seriously, 100%. Investigate fully, 100%. Yes, I think that is what that movement can mean. That's what it should mean. Absolutely. Leanne G, whatever Amber Heard is paying her PR firm, they deserve double. They sure seem to have, after the firing and hiring of the new PR firm, taken off with the media coverage, right? So whatever contacts they have, whatever methods they're using, I do think that Amber Heard's new PR team is vastly more effective, but it might have been too little too late. I mean, this all might have gotten away from them in the first few weeks of the trial. And because to me, a lot of this rings as false. Mo B, just to thank you for being our moral compass. You're your moral compass, but I appreciate it. I will certainly try to remain open and fair. I appreciate your views. Thank you so much. KBL, super sticker. Thank you. Zach Frisch, was Elaine mocking JD's voice unusual for a lawyer? Yes. This is the only time I think you've heard me swear in the last weeks. It's like, that is bullshit. That is complete crap to do that as the lawyer. You are an officer of the court. So yeah, no, that was as close as I would have gotten if I'm sitting in the judge's chair to an actual admonishment in front of the jury. We don't do that. Terry, FYI, a great commentary. I covered this. Thank you so much for the super generous super chat. I appreciate it. Dancing Beagle, hopefully media will realize that the success of LawTube is because we want more objective reporting. Keep up the good work. I think that would be great. I think it would be great if one of the things that comes out is, hey, people don't want all the filters and gauze on this stuff. I think that would be
they're not going to reach that conclusion. I promise you. They are not going to reach that conclusion. They will not reach that conclusion.
Well, some might on the margins. Somebody. Don't take this away from me so early in the morning, Kurt.
Well, I mean, it's kind of true of like most businesses or most enterprises and kind of like all kinds of domains, because the whatever the big businesses of the moment got there, through their work, and now they're in a position where they want to conserve that. So they tend to act conservatively. They go with tried and true because it's worked for them, and they want to keep doing that. And this is where innovation comes in, because they're unwilling to take risk because they have so much to lose. So they want to play it safer, not to mention that the size and legacy of the company creates its own inertia. So therefore, that's where innovation comes from. It's from the entrepreneurs, the new ones who are willing to take risks, and they eclipse the old. So it is not in the media's interest to innovate. They're going to continue going with what they know until they are made irrelevant, which has happened in pretty much every kind of business throughout time. So, and then one day we will be the legacy media, and we will not be adapting to change, and we will go extinct. But that's a long time in the future.
Well, I mean, I think you're right in broad strokes that those that don't adapt to change do die off. But I do think that there are companies and teams that have properly pivoted and observed the change coming and gone with and maybe stopped being legacy, whatever, in any industry. And I could certainly hope for more people to realize that, hey, just naked coloring of whatever it is that they're discussing isn't going to necessarily win hearts and minds.
Yellow journalism is also not new.
That's true. It's true. Yes, no, you're absolutely right, Kurt. Now, I got a lot of super chats, but I want to cover this article before we do. We do have a redirect on to Legal Bites, so
Excellent.
we're gonna transfer it over sometime between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, and we're all gonna go over. And I'll turn off super chats if they get too heavy just before that. But I want to cover this one before I hit more of those. The New York Times, big deal newspaper for a lot of people.
The paper of record, they call it. That's how big a deal it is.
It's a little haughty.
It is a little haughty, but
but a lot of people really do care about this. This is one of those where the New York Times is one of those newspapers you did see in my law firms, people actually reading. You hear a lot of people that get their news primarily from this source. We have seen for the most part the big media stay above the fray on this, and they don't want to dirty themselves discussing this kind of thing. So this was interesting. They went out with an opinion piece yesterday called Amber Heard and the Death of Me Too. And this is, again, similar time frame to that Vogue article. You're seeing these bigger outlets cover this stuff. And I don't have highlights here, so we'll be highlighting this on the fly. But you get the same kind of opening statement that we saw in the Vogue article. There are ambiguities in the sordid conflict between the divorced actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but some things are clear. So you start out setting the tone, right? This is all above us. We're going to deign to talk to you about this because you people appear to be interested in it. But realistically, what is this even? It's bread and circuses. We're going to tell you why.
It's always sordid because they don't like they don't like the nature of the parties. As I always say around, and like the other way around, they are not writing sordid.
Well, I think that might be. You get some of this. You get some of the evidence, right? You have Depp. You have the burnt corpse text. You have the video of Depp smashing kitchen cabinets. While Heard tries to calm him, saying at one point, all I did was say sorry, which I think is massively undertelling the story of that video and what the situation is. He's not even after Amber at all in that video. I think it still looks bad for him, and I did when it first came up because you do see someone that's willing to be that aggressive towards, what did he say, furniture and couches, and that can be intimidating. But this makes it sound like he's attacking her. And that's not what is happening in that video. You get in an audio recording, she tells him to go put his cigarettes out on someone else when he, of course, immediately says that it was just flicked. And of course, in this case, there's an allegation that Amber put a cigarette out on his face. But you don't see that in this paragraph.
I did not see that in that paragraph, no.
And then he responded, shut up. He admitted to headbutting her, which headbutting is his own connotation. I think what he admitted to was that their heads touched.
Yep.
But yes, he did say that happened while he was restraining her, according to Johnny Depp, from punching him about the face and head. When Heard went to court to get a domestic violence restraining order against Depp, she had a bruise on her cheekbone from where she said he threw a phone at her. She alleges, like right? I'm like, you're already in the land of, okay, so everything she says is true and worst as possible for Johnny Depp, and apparently any of his counters don't count. I'm not here to throw this opinion writer under the bus. You can read this way, but it's not terribly useful to your readers, in my opinion, to present the court case as so nakedly one-sided. But this is a rhetorical piece. You're trying to make your point. We can point it out, though, from those of us that have watched the whole thing. In 2018, The Sun, a British newspaper, called Depp a wife beater, and he sued for libel. Proving libel is much easier in Britain than in the United States because there the burden of proof rests with the defendant.
Sure.
And I did look this up a little bit. And yeah, what they mean by this is that in the UK, you actually have the burden of showing what you said was true, which is amazing.
Yes.
And it makes the Sun case more useful for folks that want to talk about it in this way, because it's incredible. Honestly, it literally is incredible to me that a judge in the Sun case apparently found that 12 of 14 incidents were substantially true. I'm trying to think of what I would frame right now with the evidence in front of me as knowing to be substantially true. I might come up with a 0 at the end of that analysis because I just don't know. And again, muddy middle goes to Amber here in the United States. But muddy middle, it sounds like, would have gone to Johnny in the UK, and the judge just did not give muddy middle at all. So that is interesting. And I want to follow up on that case after this trial is over, because based on what we've got, it's just a wildly different kind of understanding of what we should definitely take as substantially true, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now Depp is suing in Virginia for $50 million, saying that she defamed him when she described herself in a Washington Post opinion essay that didn't mention Depp. We see that reference in basically all the articles, but not even the Heard team is really fighting that Depp is referenced in the article, as a public figure representing domestic abuse. And here, Kurt, I think you'll find this interesting because this is basically what we wound up saying in the opening statements before we got into the weeds on this. His case seems absurd since even if he were entirely innocent, the British verdict was well known. The British verdict doesn't exist when she writes that op-ed, New York.
Damn straight.
Good try. And Heard was referring to what she symbolized, not what she allegedly endured. So broad strokes, this is one of the primary problems from a legalistic standpoint in the Johnny Depp case, which is the sentence, I represent domestic violence, and the sentence, I saw how institutions reacted to someone that had been accused of domestic violence. Those, as sentences by themselves, are almost undoubtedly true.
Mm-hmm.
that she did represent that, even if in her own mind, and that she did see how institutions reacted to accusations against Johnny Depp. Those are true. So you actually wind up having to read that article, which was allowed by the court, which is why the jury is going to be able to evaluate this, as implying the outside sentence that Johnny Depp committed domestic abuse against me.
Also, I'd like to take note that
Yes.
that Heard referring to what she symbolized, not what she endured, is actually ultimately the legal conclusion the jury is trying to reach about exactly that. That is what the jury's trying to do. So nice doing the jury's job on that one. That's great.
Yeah, well, and I think that's right, but I think the New York Times is making the point that I certainly did at the opening, which is like, well, I'm not sure I wouldn't have dismissed this when it was brought, because you have to show falsity. I don't necessarily buy the implication argument but this court did, like that. It's in court on that basis, or else it would have been kicked. But Judge Hoeg might have kicked this because I look at those sentences and say those aren't false, regardless of whether or not he actually committed domestic abuse.
I think your analysis is right on point. I'm not sure what I would have done in the original. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, the idea that you might have kicked it, I think that's a reasonable decision.
I might have, but by the time we're here, it hasn't been kicked, and the jury's going to get this on implication. And the implication is Johnny Depp committed domestic abuse against me, and that's what they'll be evaluating, honestly.
Right.
But I do. The New York Times coming to this conclusion, I recognize it, because that is, you could go find the stream of me on opening day saying, those are the statements. I think they're true. If Depp somehow prevails, somehow Palpatine has returned, one can expect similar lawsuits against other women who say they've survived abuse. Again, you evaluate these things like this. It's like, well, if they look like this, if it's going to come out like that, we generally want the legal system to be able to provide redress if the legal system thinks that Depp was harmed. Right. And this is the problem with opinion pieces and social movements and everything else, which is like, well, if Amber Heard is lying about Johnny Depp, that doesn't mean all women are lying. It doesn't mean broader things. You can be concerned about this, but broadly, we want people that lie about things to have to face legal redress for them. It's why we get so many super chats and questions about whether people can be brought up on perjury.
Unless those people are women, because this seems to be where this article is going, and other ones we've read along these lines in the last couple of days. Unless those people are women, in which case they shouldn't be held to account. If no other reason than because it might cause true victims to not come forward, and that's ultimately the thing that matters. Therefore, we shouldn't question any of them.
I think that the Vogue article basically stands for that premise.
I look forward to my stroke later.
Well, I find these articles not to kill you, Kurt, but to give you content. But Depp needn't, that's not a word I use very often, succeed in court to achieve his ends. In a 2016 email to his former agent, Christian Carino, I'm not actually sure that he's technically his agent at any point in the timeline. He's a guy that works at CCA and helps. Depp wrote that Heard was begging for total global humiliation. Now this televised trial has resulted in an explosion of hatred and derision directed at her. And we never really talk about whether it's warranted in these articles. Again, I'm not a hatred guy. I'm not a derision guy. I'm not writing TikTok videos. I'm not doing that kind of thing. But to the extent that you feel like she is lying and she ruined a person's life with those lies, derision is a proper kind of response to at least a certain kind of personality. The volatile actress, who at times was violent toward Depp and who never made good on a promise to donate her entire divorce settlement to charity. That's strong from New York Times, right? Because Amber Heard's team is still backing the pledged counts as donated, but you have the New York Times saying BS. And we know the jury reacted to that. We got that report from the court because it's BS. New York Times isn't even carrying water for that. Is very far from a perfect victim.
I know exactly what you're trying to do here, New York Times. I know exactly what you're trying to do here in these words.
Kurt, what is New York Times going to do before we get to the next paragraph?
Okay. So as I'm sure everyone is well aware, there is this idea that Me Too very much emphasized that, that at least traditionally, when it came to women in court, you had to be a perfect victim, right? That women were disbelieved in court because, among other reasons, that women don't always behave like we think or men and women for that matter, don't behave in the way we think we would behave in that situation.
Sure.
So this is like true of crime in general. It's definitely true of sexual assault crimes as well. So like in the abstract, we think we would behave certain ways. And then we look at the victim's behavior as like, well, I never do that. But it's like, yeah, in stressful situations, right? When logic, it's actually like part of the triune brain idea. It's like, they have the amygdala, on top of which is built the emotional center, on which is top is the frontal cortex, right? So it's baseline response, baseline physical response, emotional is next, and then logical is the last to develop in sort of the evolutionary time frame. So when systems fail, they kind of fail in reverse order. Because if the first thing that fails is logic, the second thing that fails is emotion, and the ultimate thing you're left with is just pure physical response. That's where fight or flight comes from, for example. It's like it's not a logical or emotional response, it's purely physical in some sense. So anyways, because people behave these ways, the idea was that you had to be a perfect victim to be believed. So the whole point of these words here is to see, the only reason that you're not believing her is because she's not a perfect victim. You only want perfect victims, and she's not perfect. So they're trying to dig at us. Did I say that with any competence?
Yeah, no, I got what you were saying. I think that makes sense, and I think you're right on. That's what they're going to wind up saying is that you can't just toss her out because she's not perfect. But yeah, they're also going to cover up. This is what we see in these articles, and again, when you're writing a rhetorical piece, it's normal to kind of slant things in your direction. I just don't know that it's terribly useful in terms of people that actually know what is happening and what they're talking about on this type of stuff, right? So you then get this is like the reverse order for the Vogue article. Obviously, New York Times bigger outlet, but then you get look at all the bad people online, right? Mm-hmm. Online, there's a level of industrial scale bullying directed at Heard that puts all previous social media pylons to shame. I'd have to really think about that because the social media pylon is effectively a performative art piece now. So I don't know whether this is the worst it's ever been for someone, but it is certainly bad. Countless videos skewer Heard on TikTok. The NSYNC member Lance Bass, joined in the trend of mockingly reenacting her testimony. A makeup brand even took part in the anti-Heard melee, posting a TikTok video meant to contradict her lawyer's description of how she covered up bruises. Like, this was legitimate. I mean, like, if their brand is being
That's one way of phrasing it, New York Times.
Meanwhile, every platform appears to be full of adoring pro-Depp memes. Why does it seem like the entire internet is Team Johnny? Said a Vice headline. We're not going to get to that one today, but it's of a similar ilk, let's say. And the New York Times quoting Vice seems odd, but here we are. But it's not just the internet. Believe all women except Amber Heard, Chris Rock joked recently. A Saturday Night Live sketch last weekend turned one of Depp's wildest accusations against Heard into a skit, treating her as a figure of ridicule and him as a charming scamp. And it also was unfunny, but that's just Saturday Night Live. This doesn't mean that the case is entirely straightforward. Okay, so we just leveled the internet for all of this, but remember, she's not a perfect victim. So we're turning back. So this is the New York Times opinion writer, essentially trying to look fair and balanced, trying to look somewhat neutral. I would say failing mightily, but you can see rhetorically, okay, now we go back. Oh, it's not straightforward. Heard has admitted to hitting Depp, which is pretty big time, and has been recorded insulting and belittling him. Now, interestingly, we saw at the top, we got a lot more detail about what Depp was doing, and now it's just all summary. The couple's marital counselor testified that they engaged in mutual abuse. They did, saying of Heard it was a point of pride to her if she felt disrespected to initiate a fight. Now, some domestic violence experts consider mutual abuse a myth, arguing that while both partners in a toxic relationship can behave terribly, one usually exercises power over the other. Now, here you got a problem sentence.
I've already read ahead.
Okay. But even if you believe that Heard acted inexcusably, the idea that she was the primary aggressor against a larger man with far more resources who was recorded cursing at her for daring to speak in an authoritative way defies logic. Now, they add in the rest of the sentence, but understand what the New York Times just wrote is even if you believe Heard acted inexcusably, the idea that she was the primary aggressor defies logic. That's the sentence. I don't know what to say. That's ridiculous. She could 1,000% be the primary aggressor, or otherwise, it's impossible for her to be. If the man is larger and is a bigger star, right? This is virtually impossible, the New York Times is saying, for anyone to ever believe that Amber Heard or the Amber Heards of the world could be the primary aggressor. And this is, this is where Kurt has an aneurysm, because this is strongly suggestive of the man can never be domestically abused, give or take.
Also defies logic. I'm taking
Defies
very
logic is strong.
I'm taking very personally,
Okay.
because I'm a fairly analytical guy,
Fairly,
as we know, and the idea they're like attacking me at like the core of one of the core aspects of my personality, because logic is a dominant aspect of my personality, and so like I feel attacked and I feel angry and I want to kill them, and or either that or I want to start breaking out some flow charts to show them the logic. Not that it would help.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and logic is the key there. And I knew you would, if you were on with me, I knew you would react to that particular statement.
You predicted correctly.
Yeah, it is so wrong at a fundamental level. We're all watching the evidence. The evidence, you don't have to read it pro Johnny Depp. You can say, hey, I believe Amber Heard, and I think some of these inconsistencies can be ironed away. But you can't honestly say that someone who believes she's the primary aggressor defies logic. You are killing the other side of a reasonable minds can differ kind of conversation with just self-righteousness, and effectively killing an entire half of what the law supposedly says. The laws are not written to be gendered on this stuff, quite frankly, because they couldn't be under the 14th Amendment and whatever the state constitutions also say. But when you look at something like this idea going out here, to me, this is the really dangerous idea. This is the really dangerous part of the opinion, to suggest that effectively a large man, especially, can't be domestically abused. That simply can't be the case. And the New York Times goes out with it in black and white, writ large, on the day that we're dealing with Amber Heard's cross-examination and her case in chief.
Yeah, I feel like there's two mutually inconsistent ideas that are going through my head that somehow I think are both true at the same time, which doesn't make sense, obviously. But then again, we're in a world where logic doesn't apply, apparently. Either they don't understand logic and they're just reacting in a purely emotional way, or they're being completely disingenuous because they do understand logic and they're just pretending they don't. So I'm not sure which of those it is.
I think this article author is writing good points.
No, they're not.
Yes, not that point. They're doing some good things. We can give credit where it's owned. This is clearly someone who understands logic, I would say, and then yet
do they though?
Builds to this, and then
builds. Okay, that's good news.
Well, we got more bad stuff here. Indeed, one of the most salacious details from the trial, that the one that's been used to jeer at Heard across every form of media, might just as easily fit into a story of her victimization. Yeah, so we're going to have some conspiracy-minded stuff. Depp, you may know by now, accused Heard or one of her friends of defecating in her bed as an act of revenge, and his bodyguard said she'd confessed to a prank gone wrong. Heard testified that one of their dogs, incontinent since eating Depp's weed as a puppy, defiled the bed. It was not really a jovial time, and I don't think that's funny, period. She said that's disgusting. I have to say, a very unbelievable kind of tone when she is dismissing this particular claim. I didn't find her to be very credible on this at all. Obviously, the New York Times found her to be enormously credible. Do you know what the New York Times is going to accuse Depp of here, Kurt?
Spoil it for me.
Sure. Deliberate misinformation campaign. If she's telling the truth,
Wow.
one has to marvel at how
I didn't see that one coming.
at how thoroughly Depp and his team have sullied her name. When Depp testified, the hashtags Amber Turd and MePoo shot across the internet. The image of Heard, a woman whose brand is bombshell blonde glamour, is now linked, perhaps permanently, to excrement. If she's not a psychopath, she's the casualty of a truly sadistic reputational hit job. Okay, so not only do we have the kind of conspiratorial thinking, we also have the false dichotomy, right? I think this person understands perfectly well how logic works, Kurt. They're just using it in a fashion that is not designed to elicit logical ends. So you have this.
The first possibility that she is a psychopath is definitely on the table, in my humble opinion.
Yes, no, it is on the table, but she doesn't have to be a psychopath to have had a bad day where she poops on a bed, right? Like, I think that's ridiculous, but it doesn't require you to get all the way up to psychopath level. And
they literally talk about disinformation in the next paragraph. I'm losing my brain. No, but I didn't see that coming. I probably should have, but I'm now thinking about our new Ministry of Truth.
Which got closed
the
down.
New York Times, which certainly would be one of the vetting organizations for the fact checks for the Ministry of Truth, has just called all this misinformation, and I want to die inside a little bit.
I think that's true. And we're going to finish this article. I do want to let people know, because we are going to go over to Legal Bites definitely before trial starts. I'm going to be closing the super chats in about 5 minutes. So if you have anything, get in now. And then we'll be closing those. I'll be doing them, and then I'll be delivering you over sometime between 8:30 and 9. So thank you for all the generosity that I have to close the super chats. You guys are all super awesome. But yes, actually getting to this point in the article where if she's telling the truth, if she's telling the truth, that's a pretty effective. Although Johnny Depp doesn't have to be a liar to have seen this in his bed and made assumptions, right? It doesn't have to be a huge conspiracy theory to come to that level. This in and of itself is kind of the reverse of what they're accusing Johnny Depp of doing, by saying effectively that Johnny Depp has to be a mastermind of a sadistic reputational hit job if she didn't poop in the bed, right? That assumes that it's obvious that it's dog poop, when at least I thankfully haven't been exposed to this evidence. It hasn't been delivered to the jury, I don't think. It is a photograph of the instance that would suggest it's not dog. It's also interesting that Johnny Depp's team, despite all of this, the reputational hit job, I don't believe crossed her on the dogs, really. Like, they didn't hit this too terribly hard by the time this all happens. They just let her testimony sit out there because I think it was so incredible. It was so like, really? The Yorkie? And so they really didn't cover it very hard. They talked about whether or not it could get up the stairs. They talked about that kind of thing. But yeah. So if she's telling the truth, yes, obviously the sentence that you would hope for is if he's telling the truth, then she's got issues, right? It's worth noting that in 2020, Bot Sentinel, a group that tracks online disinformation and harassment, was hired by Heard's lawyers to analyze the social media campaign against her. Everyone thinks that any activity against them is bots or whatever, the group's founder, Chris Boozy, told me. But in this case, some of it was. Boozy estimated that there were 340 inauthentic Twitter accounts devoted to defaming Heard and amplifying petitions calling for her to be fired from acting and modeling gigs. A small number of accounts can drive conversations on Twitter, he said. I mean,
how many inauthentic accounts were devoted to defaming Depp?
He wasn't hired for that.
Oh,
that was outside of his purview.
Also, 340 out of what? How many?
I don't. Twitter, man. This is why he has to follow up with a quote that says that might sound small, but like that could be big. It's like it does sound very small, honestly. On Twitter, it sounds very small. But Elon's looking into those bots, right? We know that. That'll be a video in this space soon enough. And yeah, it's they go. So now we've got Depp conspiracy. Robots. I think we're lucky we didn't have Russia mentioned in this paragraph.
They implied it.
Yet, even if trolls and bots helped juice anti-Heard mania, there are obviously plenty of real people participating in it. Some of them are obsessive Depp fans. Yes, let's go to the far ends of whatever to establish what's happening online. As Caitlin Tiffany wrote in The Atlantic, there's a history of online communities fixating on theories that the male objects of their fandom were being manipulated and tortured by less famous female romantic partners. This isn't where I get around the internet. You guys can tell me in the comments, is there a history of online communities doing this? This is not where I travel, but The Atlantic thinks it is. So that's interesting. That's interesting. There seems, however, to be a broader misogynistic frenzy at work. One characteristic of the deeply reactionary moment we're living through, she will hit the wall hard, Depp wrote in the email to Carino. Looks like he knew his audience. Again, let's assume you're looking at this from the opposite perspective, New York Times. If she's lying about this stuff, then yeah, then Depp is writing and knows that she's lying and is saying, well, we'll be able to expose it. I just, if you look at this from the opposite direction, none of this is nearly as nefarious as the New York Times would suggest. It's just impossible for this opinion writer to look at it from that perspective. So it's so interesting to see so many of these articles coming out this way. It probably won't surprise you that this particular opinion writer is the author of several books about politics, religion, and women's rights, and was part of a team that won a Pulitzer Prize for public service for reporting on workplace sexual harassment. You have that bent, and I appreciate the New York Times. I mean this sincerely. We talk a lot in Virtual Legality about anonymous sources. You never know what direction they're coming from. It's very difficult to establish what tilt and biases they have. Here, women's rights, workplace sexual harassment, that's totally fine. Those are good things, but you know what angle you're likely to hear these events in. All, of course, while you throw everybody that disagrees with you under a fanatical, conspiratorial, Russian bot type basket. So
I'm just gonna go ahead and save everyone time, by the way, because I'm critical. This person's last name is Goldberg. It must be because I'm anti-Semitic too, on top of everything else. I'm a misogynist, anti-Semitic,
I don't think
tiki torch carrying Proud Boy.
I don't think anybody was thinking that, Kurt.
No. I mean, I'm thinking ahead to like the responses to the responses, right? It's like, oh, I criticize this. I mean, it's the same damn thing. Like, I criticize Amber Heard, it must be misogyny. I criticize this article, it must be because the last name's Goldberg and I hate the Jews. I mean, it's not that much of a leap.
Well, I would hope that they wouldn't go that far.
You think? No, fuck. Are you out of your mind? Of course they'll go that far. Have you not seen that already?
I remain an optimist, Kurt. I remain an optimist. And I hope that having these conversations helps make people aware of the kind of rhetoric that doesn't make a ton of sense. That's just me. See, we're a good pair because you're cynical about this stuff. I'm optimistic. We can change the world through LawTube and other ways to better handle these kinds of things, right, Kurt? We can. I believe in it. All right, I have turned off the super chats, folks. It is 8:17. We've got some super chats to go through because you guys are absolutely awesome. And then again, when this stream ends, if YouTube is working, we never know that it will, you'll be linked directly over to Alita and Legal Bites, where I will appear a couple of minutes thereafter. With Kurt, you coming early in the morning over to Legal Bites, or you got other things going on?
Well, it's 7 in the morning, and I'm debating having tequila, but I'll be over there at some point, sure.
Awesome. So you'll see Kurt there too. And if for some reason it doesn't link over, it is Legal Bites. You'll see the live stream. That'll start at 8:30. We've got about 10 minutes until then. And we'll definitely be delivering. I'll cut the thing off before trial starts if we just wound up not getting far enough. But I appreciate all the generosity. Let's talk about it a little. Hopefully I didn't make you guys as mad as Kurt is this morning talking over headlines. I thought the Vogue article in the New York Times, I just couldn't skip, no matter how much sleep I got last night. So we're just going to roll through it today. But let's do some super chats. Christina Nardone, completely unrelated to the topic, but will you be covering the bot problem happening with Team Fortress 2 recently?
God bless you. God bless you for taking the topic literally anywhere else. Yes, Rich, let's talk about Team Fortress 2. What's going on in Team Fortress 2?
I don't know. I'd have to follow up on it. Bots,
damn it.
We're definitely going to have a bot.
I was going to be safe by virtual legality.
We're definitely going to have a bot theme, though, because the Elon Musk Twitter fight is really questionable. I have some things that I definitely want to talk to you all about. But yeah, I'll look into Team Fortress 2 because you do have games that are having these issues. We saw it with Titanfall. Oh, maybe that's Titanfall 2. You know what? It probably is Titanfall 2 because I know that that's a bot problem. Either way, I will look at it and maybe a virtual legality video. Thank you so much for the super chat. John Wells, so we are worried about bullying online. Seriously? So this woman clearly badgered this man. People calling her exactly what she is hurts, yes. Truth can be inconvenient. I mean, I think that is definitely an issue at this case, is how you read these things. JJ Girl, do you think the question to W on Cross, Whitney, Isaac said you were her spirit animal, was an attempt to catch her out for watching social media? Just a thought. Yeah, actually, maybe. She didn't fall for it if it was, but that was something that was memorable. Possibly. Polar shift. I came to this blind. Listening to Amber Heard's side, I find myself looking for inconsistencies rather than corroboration. Her lawyer's struggle has colored us all. Yeah, her lawyers have definitely been having difficulty handling Amber Heard and keeping everything in line. So, yep, I hear that totally. April Dawn, just supporting the crew. Thank you. Usually on Alita's stream. You know what? So am I. So we'll get together again over there. Thank you so much for the support. Amanda Lucero, Serenity, thank you for getting up early. I'm watching this before bed. I get up early. I like to work. I like to do all this stuff. So yeah, this might wind up being my time slot, just getting on when I get up. It also allows me, when we're not doing trial coverage, to do my legal practice in ways that make sense. But we're definitely going to do Hangouts and Headlines. A lot of people seem to like it. I like it. And so it's because of support like this that we can make it happen. And support from people like Kurt dropping in. Check out Uncivil Law. Like and subscribe. Kurt's flying up the charts. And I think, did you just cross 80,000? Is that right? 70,000?
Last time I checked, I just passed 75. So unless something happened in the last 3 hours, yeah.
How could 75,000 subscribers be wrong? Check out Kurt. He isn't always this upset at the press this early in the morning. And he's got a lot of great content on his channel. D. Whitaker 86. I think the cross on Whitney was kind and comfortable because of Howell rebuttal. They're going to paint her as a victim of Amber Heard. Hearing the way that was presented, I think the cross was chill because of Jennifer Howell. I have not read the declaration. People have sent it to me like 400 times now. I'm not going to read what Jennifer Howell declared. We're going to see how it's presented in court and go from there. But yes, that seemed to be set up. That's why it jumped out at me. That's why I said on the stream, who the hell is Jennifer Howell? Because it was so obviously like a plant. And I think it was also designed to see if Whitney reacted to that name and or tried to be defensive about it in advance. But yeah, I think they set up for that and they didn't really care about Whitney directly. Monkey Planet, I pledge $1 billion. Love your perspectives. Yes. Monkey Planet has donated $1 billion. I'm buying an island. That's what the cool kids do, right?
Darren in chat, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back.
Oh, what did Darren in chat do?
Said, could be worse, Kurt. You could have dated Heard. Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle G, I'm starting to feel bad for Amber. She doesn't have anyone left. Her fault, of course. I hope she can get some help after this. That's honestly where the You're Killing Me, Johnny tape kills me. I mean, you can hear someone that I think really does need mental assistance, and that doesn't make her actions right. I know people get mad at me on Legal Bites when we talk about rehabilitation and contrition and that kind of stuff. But yeah, in a perfect world, you'd have a realization here, you'd have contrition, you'd have apologies, you'd have an understanding, and you would get better. That's what I would want, definitely.
In a perfect world, we'd have self-awareness, which is not happening either.
Yes, the lack of self-awareness is the key right now, I think. Britt Cormier, I find that article to be in direct conflict with a quote from Matt Dillahunty. I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. You do not have to subscribe to his philosophy to agree with this statement. Sure. Yeah, no, you should. You should want to believe the truth and disbelieve untruths. Absolutely. Thank you, Britt. Jamie Arnold, Kurt and Hoeg, really appreciate your balanced views and not being afraid to speak what you think. That's what makes your channels and panels so good. Thank you. I agree. Thank you so much, Jamie. Oima, can either of you explain the Congress meeting about UFOs and declassification? I know it's not Depp v. Heard, just curious. I'm seeing those news articles in my timeline. Congress, to me, they're engaging in distraction because there's a lot of things to be concerned about in terms of the functionality of the institutions of the democratic United States of America. And so they do things that people are otherwise interested in, and they have hearings like that in order to have those headlines. But no, I don't think anything's going to come of that of any interest. Kurt, do you have any competing thoughts on that?
Not in particular. I mean, I think the UFOs are that have been spotted are of terrestrial nature, whatever they are, experimental aircraft or experimental missiles or whatever. But I have no thoughts really beyond that.
Yeah, and people like that kind of stuff. It's one of those rock star things. It's the Charge Area 51 kind of thing.
Naruto run at Area 51.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma. Emma Rain, really enjoying Hangouts and Headlines. Thanks, Rick. I'm glad. I love it. Do the YouTubey things if you haven't already. Pledges don't count. Hi, Kurt. YouTubey things. I can't say that. It's like a Lita's thing. I sound ridiculous saying YouTube.
I picked it up. I'm using it somewhat.
You have?
Yeah.
It's so funny. We hear that video every day, and I wound up saying YouTubey things once, and I was like, that sounds wrong.
I think she got it from Emily D. Baker, actually.
Well, then I can't pull off Emily or Alita. I'm
No.
my own guy over here in virtual legality. So no, I
I
appreciate
definitely
it.
can't pull off Emily, which is one of the reasons I like her, because she's so dislike me that I feel like she's a compliment to me in some ways.
Absolutely. I love Emily. But she is brash and a bull in a china shop, and I love it. Thank you so much for the super chat. And yeah, like and subscribe to this stuff. It tells YouTube that you like it. All the stuff that you'll hear from Alita later today. Thank you so much. Kathleen R. MC Uncivil in the house.
Yep.
SM LawTube killed the mainstream media coverage on this. Yes, we did. I thoroughly believe that. Love your media article coverage, Hoeg. Sending love from Australia. One of the big players, of course, in Depp v. Heard. Thank you, Australia. Crucio, hello from Poland. It's my people. I love the commentary and your explanations. I'm so glad I found LawTube. Home office is definitely more fun with you guys. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. Allison Laurie, Ben King was paid by the hotel in the studio. Okay, yes. So
yes, hyper-technically, yes, but I agree with Richard. This is like a distinction in my mind that's meaningless.
Yeah, this is like the sound guy saying he's paid directly by Disney.
I didn't work for Depp. I worked for the studio. Yeah. Whose service were you actually in? Depp's. Yeah. Yes. Give me a break.
Yeah. No. And I think that distinction without a difference is the perfect way to describe it. It's like, I get it. Your checks are signed by Bob Iger. However, you're getting those checks because of Johnny Depp. So whatever bias you have, and I don't necessarily think you are biased.
No, I don't think he is either. I found him very, very credible, likable.
Very credible. But yes, okay, we get it. You're paid by the hotel in the studio. I do understand that. He's Johnny Depp's guy. Jackie K. As a woman, I found the Vogue article to be particularly offensive, especially after applying critical thinking to the facts of the case for myself. Love you both, and thanks. Purple Heart / Emily and sunshiny emoji. Thank you so much, Jackie. Yeah, I could totally get that. The folks, this is the problem with media articles in general. If you really know something, you're going to see how much superficiality and ambiguity they add to any topic. So yes, I totally agree. If you know what's going on in this court case, that Vogue article is somewhat difficult to read. Don Leinart, ACLU lawyer on JD's side, not paid for by him. ACLU lawyer was not on JD's side. In fact, he was scrambling to the best of his ability in that deposition to cover for Amber Heard. He says in his testimony that we treat pledged and donated the same, and that he did not feel that she had lied with the donated statement. She's an ambassador for the ACLU, so she was not on JD's side. He was not on JD's side.
If they treat pledged and donated the same, then I guess she has fulfilled her obligations. So okay.
Well, again,
I'd also like to pledge $10 million to the ACLU at this point.
There you go. There you go. Potentially a doctor. Thanks for the stream. Question: doesn't the fact that Amber Heard's lawyers keep insisting on the pictures of Amber Heard when they don't look like black eyes or swelling hurt? Probably.
Yes, I don't think, they do.
Yeah,
they do. They don't match what she's saying.
Yeah,
this is one of the things I tried to clarify in my after party stream, where people I think misunderstand me sometimes on what I am and I'm not saying. Like, yeah, I believe the makeup artist in terms of, I saw the bruises and that the bruises were real and I was able to cover them and still see them through the makeup. It's like, I believe all those things, but I also believed her when she said of the photo, this is a true and accurate representation of what I saw. And it was this photos we've seen before. I'm like, well, this photo doesn't match the description from Amber Heard, so I'm not sure exactly what the bruising was caused by. I believe it's real, but I don't believe it's anything like Amber Heard is saying. So, yeah.
Well, that's funny, right? Because Rocky attests to certain of these things, is blood on the scalp, all this stuff. And you're like, well, that does sound bad. And then you put up the photos, like, oh, I saw those photos. This is what we're talking about? It's like, yeah, you can see it there. I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, I do think it hurts. Yasmin, how is that a clip of Drew talking about Amber cheating with Elon Musk and Cara Delevingne, the chick from Suicide Squad, is missing from the Drew deposition? Love your inputs on this case. I would argue they fought about what was to be inserted in a deposition. I guess if it was cheating, that's one thing. If there wasn't a time frame put on it, it would probably be more prejudicial than probative, would be my guess. Would be that fight about that. It is salacious, but it may not be useful to whether or not the statement in the Washington Post is defamatory. Mindy D, not just using, but even smoking cigarettes, nicotine, and marijuana apparently made him crazy. Blew my mind. Never heard that in my life. Heart emoji to you and Kurt. You're my favorites. Shh. We won't tell anybody. This wasn't even broadcast on the internet. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much. Niam Ebb, as a woman, the Me Too movement, in a way that movement extends to men who suffered abuse, as they arguably have a harder time proving that they were victims of the weaker sex. Loving the coverage, love from Ireland.
Yep.
I think if there are allegations from either gender, they should be taken seriously, and that can be a good movement. And to me, that's what should be adopted. Take these things seriously, investigate them, and then evaluate them. It can't just be belief or faith.
I can't remember which of our compatriots mentioned it right now, but on one of the live streams we've been on, someone pointed out that the honeymooners used to be a thing. You know, PAL, Alice, straight to the moon. Like domestic violence against women used to be a punchline on mainstream broadcast television.
Yeah.
Right? It was a punchline. I mean, like, it's literally and figuratively. But today, like, the same thing against men. It's still a punchline against men. And there's plenty of examples against that. But it's like, you know, it's an interesting thing in a lot of levels. Yeah. I don't quite understand it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Apple Pie, I believe Amber Heard. I believe that TMZ was alerted to the TRO and divorce. I believe she started fights per the recordings. I even believe she was frustrated to her shrink that she couldn't change. Yep. I mean, that believing all those things, she definitely said those things in court. So I get what you're saying. Yep, you can believe those. Duchess of Duchessness. Hi, Hoeg and Kurt. Love your take on this. Thanks. Thank you. Ali79, did either of you see Amber Heard exit the courtroom before the jury? We did.
Sure did.
Is that frowned upon? Yes.
Yes, very.
Respectful of the judge and jury? Yes.
Yep.
But whether the jury actually considered it or was impacted by it,
I'm sure someone noticed.
Ezgi, Tepi, can they both lose? Yep.
Yes.
They each have burdens of proof. So default goes to them, not them. Ashley Byerly, thank you for the super chat. Kristen, Vogue is an op-ed, not an article.
Yeah.
I think an op-ed is an article. I mean, you're saying it's not a news article. Total agreement. I think this is just the way I use it, I guess. Everything in there is an article, and it can be an opinion piece or it can be a news piece. And I'm not disputing the fact that both those things that we looked at today are opinion pieces. That's why it's such a big deal for the New York Times to go out with an opinion piece like that, because they've been covering, neutrally is a little strong, but kind of trying to do just the facts coverage of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard because everybody's interested in it. So they have a bunch of articles on their news side that is like, this is what was said. But this was the first time that I saw that they came out very strongly with a position in the opinion side. You'll also get comments that say, well, it's their opinion. It's not the New York Times. These outlets choose who gets that space.
Can I see the New York Times for any ID?
Any what?
Negligent infliction of emotional distress, or NIED. I should have said it the other way around. Sorry.
Can they sue the New York Times?
Can I sue them?
Negligent infliction of emotional distress is one of those things that's out there in the laws, and you know this as well as I do, that is really hard to win on any basis. But I know you're joking, so sue away. Anybody can sue anyone. David, I've heard Nurtec by Biohaven is great for migraines. Haven't tried it yet as a non-US citizen. Either way, keep up the great work, Hoeg. Yeah, I mean, usually Motrin does the job. It just wasn't doing it. Honestly, that was probably as much sleep as anything else. I can really trigger those if I don't do proper rest, and I did not do proper rest before yesterday. So I appreciate it. I got like 5 full hours this last night, which is generally what I need. So I'm good to go. Jashane Charles thought that JD had said that there had been a time with an accidental headbutt. He did, where he was trying to hold her. Yes. Is yesterday's testimony related to this, or is it referring to another time? Confused. No, that's the headbutt incident is what we would call December 15. It is 2015 in December. So you saw the makeup artist talking about it. I think that's the primary reference point that we saw the headbutt described. But anytime they're talking about December 15, that is the headbutt incident. Mo B, have you listened to Runkle's latest reviews of the jury reactions? Interesting take on yesterday. I was on the panel when he spoke in. I suspect Ian is overselling it a little bit in terms of the effectiveness there. He even backed off from it a little in the after the post interviews of the day. But I think it was a good day for Amber Heard. I don't think there's any question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Spetty Ross, I wonder what Vogue thinks about color correcting over foundation and concealer. That's the commentary I want from them. Thank you guys. Honestly, it's their wheelhouse. I would have liked to have heard about that as well. So yeah, I think it's a good point.
Is that woman still the editor of Vogue? The woman who is from with the hair and the short hair?
I don't know. I don't think so. But yes, we're obviously very well versed in this because I know who you're talking about, and I cannot remember her name either. Very famous.
Yeah.
Nethstar, Vogue, JD fans have formed a conspiracy about Amber Heard lying. This is bad. Also, here's my conspiracy. The trial itself is orchestrated to discredit Amber Heard. What? Yes, you could argue that that is exactly the thesis of the article. Dana Perez, I enjoy your and Kurt's point of view. Keep it up. Really like the headlines reporting. I can get caught in my own world and not realize what is going on out there. Well, and again, the one thing I would caution is that I can only do a few when we do one of these episodes, and they're picked out by me. So definitely go out there and check for yourself. And I try to pick out the ones that I think I have the most to say about. But yeah, not even I can cover everything. And so thankful to the people DMing me headlines now all the time. My DMs are crazy with headlines. So I pick out what we want to talk about. Hey, Mike.
Good morning. What the hell's going on in here?
I've lost the will to live, Mike. Rich is trying to talk me down from the ledge.
Every time Kurt joins me for an early morning hangouts and headlines, I fear that I've killed his entire day.
Well, these are long days here.
We're just doing super chats. We got redirect set up for Alita. We're going to hand off before court case starts. That's all we're doing. You're welcome to join us.
I can't help noticing the roof of Willis Tower behind you. It looks really attractive right about now. I'm telling you what.
Actually, that's John Hancock building.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Either way. I'll learn the name of it before I jump off of it.
Honestly, I thought that was, I did think that was the Sears Tower / Willis Tower. It's not?
No, this is the north side. It's like North Michigan Avenue behind me there.
All right, see,
this is right where I am. This picture was taken on one of my walks. It's about a block from my apartment.
Wait, hold on. You made a fake background that is roughly exactly what you see from your house. Okay,
that's actually not bad. That's actually not bad. In some ways, that makes it less fake, I guess.
Yeah,
it's like what I'd actually see. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
no, it's cool. It's cool. Well, I like that you picked one that has high contrast, so you don't get as clipped as some other people I see using those kinds of things. All right, so we have just a few more. I think we're gonna be able to hand off just fine. Stephen Glasker, for those who don't know the difference, bullying is what Amber Heard did to Johnny Depp. Mockery, rightly so, is what the internet is doing to Amber Heard. Stop being so soft, says Stephen. I do think folks can go too far. I think that's legitimate to look at that question, but the media is using it to paint everyone with too broad a brush. There's no question. Mel B, Yellow Heart, to you both. Love these smaller panels. Kurt and Hoeg, you crack me up, especially Kurt's unedited sarcasm. Hi from Australia. I still have all my digits. I thought Australia just eats a finger when you go down there. No, is that true? Okay. Hi from Australia. Amanda Lucero, Serenity. It isn't the death of Me Too because JD is part of Me Too. I think that's the right way to look at it. I think investigating claims is the right way to look at
it. It should hopefully be the death of Believe All Women.
Yeah, I mean, we and
that should have never been born.
We saw in both the Vogue article and the New York Times article, both within like the last 36 hours, that they're taking very strong stances that Believe All Women is appropriate even for Amber Heard.
I mean, instead of Believe All Women, I had this radical idea, and let me know if you think it would catch on. I was thinking maybe we could have a process of some kind. Maybe it would be due to people, and we could go through the process, and that would help us adjudicate things. You think,
you think it could catch on? Newsletter. You can tell me more.
Okay.
Kelly Jacobs, wish I could send more. No, this is more than generous enough. Kelly, thank you so much. Good morning to you both. Kurt,
no, it's not. It's not generous enough. Give him more money.
No, it's fantastic. I want to know Kurt vampire emoji. Is that because you were in the dark? It's probably because you were in the dark.
Also because I don't sleep, apparently, which is kind of true.
Abby Smith, I'm a JD fan, but have given Amber Heard my open mind to listen to her evidence. I cannot find a consistent ground story in her telling and additions. I truly enjoy both of you. Thank you. I feel the same way, Abby. I feel I'm listening. I'm giving an open mind, and there were major problems with her testimony. Thank you for the super chat. Ashley Byerly, Amber Heard's new PR guy, blasted for sexual harassment socials and deleted social media accounts and is not in court this week. Not a good look for Amber Heard. Does it affect her case? The jury
No, not
shouldn't know
really.
anything about that.
Jury's not going to notice that.
Yeah. So, no. Honest mistake. The UK judgment is out in the public domain. It's one of the worst I've ever read. I think I'm going to do that post-trial. I think maybe we'll do a read-through of how the UK court came to its decision, especially if Johnny Depp wins.
I feel like the
because
UK
then you
has
have-
got to whack her around one way or another. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
perjury charges or just kicking her out of the country, but the UK has got to be feeling like egg on their face. So they got to do something for their own sanity.
Didn't Express come out and say that they might be reopening an investigation of lying with respect to their court system? I don't know. Rumors in the internet, man. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Don't believe me, even if you're listening to me right now. Who knows? I'm on the internet.
I would just like to kindly remind everyone that the ability to be criminally convicted is one thing, or even civilly convicted is another thing. Being excluded by a country is a whole other ballgame because they basically have unlimited power.
Sure.
So the UK or Australia can be like, we did an
We don't want you here."
investigation, and with absolutely no evidence of any kind, we're banning you because we can,
We feel
and you'll never come
uncomfortable.
back.
Yeah, which I mean, you talk about how much recording and how much theatrical stuff is done in the sound stages in London and in England. That would be a big freaking deal if they excluded Amber Heard.
I'm on board. Maybe we can get the Queen to extend it to all the Commonwealth countries while we're at it.
Savannah Gray 626, love the commentary. I'm patiently waiting for Beat Michigan week to watch Hoeg try to read super chats with all the M's X'd out. Go Bucks. I said it for you. You know what? Maybe we'll do a headlines and hangouts that doesn't have any headlines. The week of Michigan, Ohio State. We'll just have a good old community. We'll have some Michigan people. We'll have some Ohio State people. It's a good, solid rivalry of schools that hate each other. And I'm more than happy to do it.
What do they want? Like 16 of 17 here? Something? What are you complaining about, Buckeyes?
Why are you bringing that into my house, Mike?
Well, I happen to be aware of it.
My clock says we haven't lost to Ohio State in like 770 days or something. All right. Okay. All right.
Who wants to beat Ohio State with no points on the scoreboard? Go Clemson.
Hey, Patricia Douglas, JD moms died. A loving wife, Kit Cab, via Amber Heard, slid videos, TMZ. JD's mom died. Loving wife, Kit. Cab video that Amber Heard gave to TMZ. I think Amber Heard apparently gave things to TMZ. I don't know that I'm reading the rest of that right, Patricia, but thank you very much for the super chat. Durrani Devi, please do a video of reading the UK verdict. I really want to see your guys' reaction. I'll look at how long it is and maybe do excerpts. It does sound fun at post-trial. I mean, I think by the end of
While
this
we're waiting
week,
for the verdict, I think for the 3 months we have to wait, we'll be covering additional content.
Yeah, it may be. Jury verdict days are always like, what should we talk about? So maybe. Hazard Man 89, uncivil law vindicated, believe all women.
Yep.
Lord Luke M., the UK judge also said that there could not have been a monetary incentive because AH said she donated the $7 million. That's honestly what the rumors are of the UK looking at it further now that it's
the judge looks pretty stupid now, don't they?
It's clear they're wrong there. Rainey, hi Hoeg. On the topic of articles, my friend came out with one about Heard v. Depp. Some might gain insight into the misogyny. Smiley face emoji, links in the chat. I will look into it. Thanks, Rainey. G-Dash, UK judge said JD Truth equals 0 because drugs police equals 0 because no report Amber equals 100 because she had no profit to lie since she donated divorce proceeds. That is amazing.
That's too much math for this time of morning.
If that's what happened. JD and the police can be ignored because Amber's 100% right because she had no reason to lie. Wendy's Cafe, morning guys, coffee cup emoji, coffee cup emoji, coffee cup emoji. I'm just a plebeian here, but I do have my Coke ready to go.
I've got my caffeine pills on the table here. I'm looking at taking a few of those right about now.
Nadia, same thing happened to Will Smith. That's Hollywood.
What?
I don't.
What happened to Will Smith?
Hit someone on live TV. Maybe they're talking about something else. Grumpy Old Gramps, Runkle of the Bailey is on Fox 5, DC, YouTube, in line for the court. Good job, fellows.
That I have to
Ian's
check
getting
out.
all that coverage. Court TV, Fox 5. Good times, Ian.
Is the Court TV segment online somewhere? Because I'd like to see that too.
Not that I saw, but maybe we can look it up. Objectionable law, Ashley D. Harrison. Feminist Plus have experienced sexism their entire life, Kurt. Teachers said boys better at math and science. Military boss said he wants to spank me like a child and many more. How you criticize a woman determines if it's sexist. That's right. Kurt never said anything different. Kurt just said that it's not misogynistic to criticize a woman as a blanket rule, that you have to look into how that was done and why. Thank you for the comment. Boo, darn, didn't know my genitals block all my abilities to lie and defy logic. Hang on tight, believe all women. Thumbs up emoji.
I'm glad you
I'm
finally
going to
figured it
refrain
out.
from comment on that one. Let's move on before I say something.
Ben Carroll, I really feel Kurt's pain reading through this. Laughing, smiling emoji. Keep up the great work, guys. David, hey, New York Times, men too, learn compassion. I think me too should just apply either way.
Whoa.
Maddie, yes, never does small dog attack big dog. It defies logic. Small women would never hit a bigger man. There's a portion in the New York Times article that says effectively it defies logic because Johnny Depp is bigger for Amber Heard to ever be considered the aggressor.
Well, when you see that, it's just clearly planted PR stories from to friendlies. You can just see that sort of thing.
It was by
It makes
far
me want to break out a flowchart or something. It's like, do I have to walk you through this? Because I can do it.
Of course, they can attack men. I'll tell you why. Because yes, men are physically larger, but they cannot reciprocate. So it's easy. A man is the easiest target in the world if that particular man doesn't feel like going to prison.
Yeah, well,
which is most of them.
And there are real big dudes that are absolute sweethearts. And so it's
yeah.
The sentence, it doesn't make any sense. New York Times couldn't even defend it if they were asked. Leanne G, my other problem with this horrible take basically means that all men are bad at their core. It's saying that they will always abuse power and always fight back. That's such a cynical viewpoint. Yep. Lazy, I think it was angry censored swearing emoji. I love it. I haven't seen that one before. And I think you're absolutely right. It does essentially impute bad motivations basically always to men in that particular locution. And that can't be acceptable. That doesn't work for anybody. Objectionable law, Ashley D. Harrison. Kurt, I should have added, even feminists, especially feminist lawyers, care about facts first. And I've agreed with 90% of your thoughts on trial. You're thinking of extremists, not reasonable people.
Probably true.
I think that's right. He just meant that you can't assume that it's misogynist to criticize. Thank you very much for the super chat. April Dawn, Kurt, your logic is your best quality. Sometimes people tell me I'm cold-hearted because I try to think logically as opposed to emotionally. Do you?
Thanks, April. I feel encouraged. Logic kicks ass. If you disagree, you can go to hell.
Leicester Legal Solicitors and Advisors. Hoeg, Kurt sounds like you gave him your migraine. Someone get the man an aspirin or something. Kurt's gonna be fine. Kurt steers into the bit a little bit, but I think I do think I make him nuts with these headlines sometimes, and I really appreciate him coming in anyway. Lord Luke M, switch the gender in that defies logic sentence and see what happens. Yep. Dawn, how is the rap going, uncivil? Scales of justice emoji.
I made an announcement video this morning.
Oh, okay. Check it out on his channel. Like and subscribe. And subscribe to Uncivil Law. Like and subscribe to Law Talk with Mike. Hey, we got rap. We got karaoke. We got all sorts of stuff. King of Class, I think defying logic makes sense to the writer if viewed through their philosophy of power structures, which is BS. Yeah, yes, it does. That's what they said. It's always going to be impossible for Amber Heard to be the aggressor because of other circumstances. That's just not how human beings relate. It's certainly not how the law is written. Rockin' Dawkins, SC, sister testified she saw abuse. Yes. Doesn't this make it a loss on Johnny's side, making OpEd true? If you take it as fact, if you look at Whitney and say 100% that's done, then yes. But these are all competing characterizations. Amber Heard testified to a lot of abuse. It's not just her that can be discounted.
I'm thinking of a certain Sean Connery quote right about now when I'm thinking about the instance with the one I mean without me saying it explicitly.
No.
Is it too early for the morning for me to make the connection? Okay, about slapping women and it being okay to slap women.
Oh, from his interview,
maybe they deserve it every once in a while.
Yes, Sean Connery is noted for that.
It's like I was going with that.
Lines from
it's like I think Johnny Depp gets a freebie, even if it happened in the stairwell at this point, because of Amber Heard was kind of where I was trying to go with that. But again, it's way too early in the morning for this. So
not a freebie, but it's because everything else is called into question. And Whitney is just as discounted as his sister, to be honest. Then you go, okay, well, what happened there? Then you add on that the staircase incident doesn't fit the description that Amber gave it. and then presumably you're having whoever the mysterious Jennifer Howell is descend from the heavens and say something about all this, then you have enough open questions that you don't have to necessarily take that as sacrosanct. But if you say Whitney Heard is correct, or I apologize, I know she has a married name, I just don't remember it, that if you say that she is correct, then yes, that would defeat the defamation claims on the 2 abuse claims. It wouldn't defeat the SV headline, which would still be an open question on
My
republication.
pickup line for Amber Heard is, I'll say, did it hurt? And she'll say, when I fell from heaven. And I'll say, no, when you were burning in the pits of hell.
Kurt's
Good morning.
Fine form this morning. Say, dude, the aggression scares me even when we agree, Kurt.
Yeah.
And finally, Philip Gaddis with a super sticker. Thank you so much. I think we got everything. I think we turned off the super chats in time. We're going to say goodbye to you right now. We've got the redirect on. So hopefully for the 4,000 of you watching here, it's just going to send you right over to Legal Bites where we're 10 minutes away from court. And I'll be appearing in 60, 120 seconds over there. So join us over there. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And get ready for the last day of trial this week before the big finale week next
I'm
week.
going on Legal Bites and I'm going to express thoughts.
Yeah. Me too.
At least
Thanks,
you'll be like,
Greg.
what did you do to Kurt?